Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris. I am your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. Episode 176 today, and I just want to say, if you're new here, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the podcast. And I've been doing this podcast for almost 4 years. It's been an amazing journey to get here, and I love having these conversations with you. The first thing I just want to say, if you enjoy this episode, two things. Let me know. Leave a comment down below here on the YouTube channel, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. But the second thing is share it with someone. Share it with someone that you think will resonate with this episode, or maybe will actually resonate with one of the other episodes. Now, in today's topic, it's actually kind of a little different. I've always asked people to, ask me a question, or if people would love to see things on the podcast, what would you like to see? And that is our topic today. I've had a question come through. It is from an anonymous person, which is fair enough. Not everyone likes to share that, which is 100% okay. And it's a really good question. It's deep and it's off the cuff. And I want to answer it off the cuff. I don't want to be, sitting here planning in advance. I've got some directional points in terms of maybe how I want to make sure I bring in themes and things like that, but I haven't gone into the detail. So we're going to dive into that today. And the question, which I guess will lead into the whole topic of today, and this is the question: what is a significant failure or setback you've experienced, and how did it ultimately shape your perspective or approach to life? It's a deep question. It's very full on. I want to dive into it. That's the episode today. That's what we're going to... This could be a very quick episode, or it might be a very long episode, depending on how much I get into the detail. And as I think we dive into that topic, I'll probably be able to understand it a little bit better, and you'll either go real long or real short, but you'll find out soon enough anyway. So appreciate you being here. Get comfortable, get cozy. We're going to roll the intro and let's get into it. The question again: what is a significant failure or setback you've experienced, and how did it ultimately shape your perspective or approach to life? There's a lot we can dive into this. We can talk about lessons learned. We can talk about, the different setbacks that do come through. Oh, I do want to touch on a whole bunch of different things, right? Making sure that this perspective, and the first point is this perspective of failure. I don't think in my life I've ever experienced something where I've said I've failed. Maybe in the midst, like in the moment, I've said, oh, this is it, I failed, it's not going to work out. But now that I look back, in hindsight, there hasn't been a moment where I think, because of that, I failed and I wasn't able to, get to where I wanted to be. I am exactly where I want to be now. Of course, I'm heading into a direction of where I want to continue to grow. But I'm in that position towards where I want to go and grow. So when I think about failure or setbacks, I think they're two different things. Failure is when you 100% give up. Now, look, I've had a number of different businesses over the years, and some of them, they didn't work out. They failed in the sense of we didn't make enough money from it. It didn't make sense to continue it. Therefore, we sold it or we stopped doing it and we moved on to something else. But in that, perspective, I see that as, it's a redirection. It's a refocus of where I'm putting that attention and that effort. Ultimately, having multiple different businesses enables you to make something bigger and better as you can gain that experience. So I had back in the day during university with my mates, we did a project and it was called Mr. Mum Laundry. And we actually we came first in our whole class in terms of who had the best business idea, in terms of viability, net profit and all these different things. And we actually thought, why don't we actually start this business like when we leave university and make it happen? And a lot of the people didn't want to. They wanted to go, they didn't want to take the risk. They wanted to go focus on, really just getting into the 9 to 5. And look, I got into the 9 to 5 as well, but I had a little bit of time before that job started. I think I had 6 months off. And at the time, my business partner, Jeremy, and I, we were trying to make this happen, and we were running through it, running the numbers, we were getting ready to start. And it was at the last minute, we ran some more numbers and the time, effort and things like that. And we were like, it's just not feasible for where we're at this point. So we made a judgment call. We stopped doing that, and Jeremy had a different idea, which kind of, had come from a few different inspiration points, and that was to build a subscription sock business. And we did that. We had that bootstrapped pretty quick in a couple of weeks. We went and set up business accounts, got all that ready, and we probably operated for 2.5 years. Didn't make huge dollars, but we built that business. And then by the time it wasn't getting to where we were wanting to go, we also weren't putting in a lot of effort to it. We were learning. It was kind of like our first business together. And it was a different type of business, sourcing, getting the product, shipping it out. We had constraints with postage, which everyone does at the moment as well. This is going back like 10, 15 years ago, probably 10 years ago. Yeah, 10 years ago. And anyway, so he decided he wanted to move out of it. He sold his half to me. I purchased it and I continued on for a bit. Got harder and harder. If I was to think about it now, we should have done things completely different, right? And that's hindsight for you. But eventually I ended up selling that as well. Sorry, I stopped the business and I sold the business name, and it was all done and dusted. Now, my point here on this one is, was that a failure? The business failed in the sense of like it didn't continue to thrive and grow, but I didn't put in the effort to make that happen. Did it create a setback? No, it did not create a setback. From that, I have continued to want to build more businesses. I have been working on trying to build businesses ever since I knew I could. And that has just been in my core. What that looks like is always going to be different. Sometimes we get, writer's block in the sense of you're trying to seek inspiration. It's all too overwhelming. But usually it's the simple things which are the real big successes. But in that point, I reflect back on that, and there was an amount of things that I've learned from that. That when I set up my business on eBay, there was a lot of things that I was able to take from that and apply, and lessons learned from that, especially one with postage. And, this isn't an episode about postage or anything like that, but postage has continued to increase every year since then. When I started reselling, which was almost 4 years ago, this is my 4th year doing it, I think postage to send something into just interstate, domestically, was on average around $7.60. At the moment, it's now about $10.90 or $11. It's gone up basically $1 every year. A little bit more than that, about 3% every year. That's a huge impact to the bottom line, that continued cost, but it's something that you've had to adapt to, something that we've had to be able to figure out and work through. So that's that perspective. I don't see failure as something which is that's the end. It's how do you use that to then redirect? And I think from that, there's been moments, I guess, if I look at this, like what other things have ultimately shaped my perspective or my approach to life, from things not going to plan, things failing, things not working out, having setbacks, right? And I think there's other things which, if I was to look at it from the perspective of, maybe it's regrets, and I failed to maybe execute something, or I didn't do something, so therefore it's created a setback later in life because I don't have experience with it. And I think that one was risk-taking. I've always been a person that kind of follows not necessarily, I'm very routine-based, and I don't like getting outside the walls and doing things which might, step on people's toes or get people uncomfortable, because I'm a people pleaser. That's naturally who I am. And it's sometimes a good thing and a bad thing. And as people say, one of my weaknesses, but it's also one of my best strengths, is I'm too nice. So I don't like to create discomfort to others. I don't like to create conflict, all those different things, which is a bit of a setback. And it's a failure on my point to enable me to be able to grow and gain additional experience and to thrive. And I remember getting this feedback from my career counselor back when I was working full time. And when I got promoted to manager, getting to manager to senior manager is a lot harder, of course. And, I was I'd been manager for about, I think it was 2 years, 3 years, and looking to how do I get to that next level. And the conversation that came up was, he's like, mate, just chill out. And his encouragement to me was, take more risk. Like, go do something which is going to stretch you, that gets you really uncomfortable, that forces you to grow, or, being proactive in a way that maybe people didn't see it coming. Now, he's not saying go be silly, because obviously I'm working on a client, situation, and I can't go do things which is going to screw up a client. But he was more just, just try things, right? And now, at that point, I didn't really understand what he meant by that. I loved what I was doing, and I didn't really want to get out of my kind of comfort zone. That's really more the point. And now that I'm working for myself, and I'm the only one that is leading where this business goes, I don't have a choice but to get out of my comfort zone. If I don't get out of my comfort zone, I will not grow, the business will not grow, and I become the bottleneck and the main reason why the business would possibly fail or have a setback. Learning to take risks and learning to put yourself in a position that's going to force you to grow is probably one of the best things that I've done. Now, I've been doing this, probably forcing myself to grow, ever since I probably started the storage unit part of the business, where I, spent money per month to have a storage unit. It meant I now have to start working a little bit harder, because I've got a little bit more skin in the game. That was scary. That was calculated. It was uncomfortable. And that was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And since then, now I'm on my 4th storage unit. I still remember buying, when I got my first wholesale order, spending like between $500 and $1,500 from a few different places. And that was scary as heck. Like, oh, I'm spending so much money. And since then, I've now spent over $100,000 in sourcing from the same wholesaler. Like, that just blows my mind. And I've been comfortable with it. And that's the thing. Like, I didn't do that, obviously, the next time. I've done that over a period of time. But the fact of the matter is because I was willing to step out of a setback that I experienced from learning, from a hindsight experience, that because I didn't go stretch myself, because I wasn't willing to take a risk, because I failed to execute on that part or take action, I didn't get that experience, which didn't set me up for success when I started the business. Now, what did set me up for success for starting my business was, being diligent, being proactive in the sense of being on time, being punctual, being willing to go above and beyond, ensuring that things are client ready, but also internal ready, and keeping in mind who are the stakeholders. So thinking beyond myself, and that's a lot of that doesn't translate into, okay, how does that enable you to be a better version of yourself, or how does that, enable you to ultimately shape, a better perspective of life or a better approach to life or success. But it's in the nitty-gritties of putting in the reps. Being self-aware, but also being aware of the people around you, having empathy. There is a book called, don't think I've got it right next to me, I think it's 12 and a half by Gary V, which talks about all these 12 different emotions and different things you feel while, going through life and going through business. And at the end of the day, it comes back to the empathy that we have with other people. How do we handle other people? How do we communicate with other people? How do we act with other people? There's some themes that I did put down that I've pulled out across, just my life. And I think these themes that come out are resilience, personal growth, overcoming challenges. And I mean, these are all central to the podcast anyway, but they're probably the 3 points that I think we all are going to go through at some stage. And they all kind of, if you were to put them into like a Venn diagram, they all kind of overlap in the middle. And the middle is you then being able to grow and thrive and, experience life for the better. During resilience, it's probably because you're going through a failure or a setback, right? Maybe you've had an emergency bill pop up, a death in the family, something out of your control has happened, like a setback, which, man, it's now a time of resilience. You've had to push through. Look, I've been very fortunate where I haven't had huge life-changing things like that happen before. But there has been times where I've had to make sacrifices of, I chose work over friends, family, relationships, and, getting closer in some of those areas. I chose work instead. And, I was working 70 hours some weeks to just get things done. But it was a time of resilience because I knew what I wanted, and I wanted to be able to prove that to the people that were above me, or I wanted to be able to, go for a promotion or whatever it may be. Some of it I enjoyed, some of it I didn't. But that was a part of resilience. You had to see it through, ride it out. Just like when we had the pandemic, it was a period of resilience. We had a huge setback in all of our lives, out of our control. And in that, we had to learn how do we be our best versions of ourselves in a redefined box of what we call life. And a lot of us broke. Like, we couldn't handle it. And it shaped our perspective of going back to work. It shaped our perspective of what is important to us in life. What is our purpose? Why are we doing this? Which ultimately, for me, that led to me actually taking this journey and actually building this business, starting this podcast, and taking a chance on myself, because I started to question, why was I doing those things, right? In that sense, resilience because of one setback or frustrations or of work or things where you had to kind of go above and beyond or spend extra time, there was a silver lining from it. And that's why we need to focus on being resilient, seeing it through, working through it. How do we handle it? How do we manage it? How do we mitigate it? How do we get ourselves a bit more comfortable when things aren't comfortable at all? And then we can see that ultimately from that, we can then make better decisions, or we have different opportunities, and we can be, present in making those decisions. The next theme was personal growth. I mean, if I play it back to again, I think the biggest setbacks or significant points in life which has enabled me to then ultimately shape my perspective and my approach to life has been obviously the pandemic, but then not seeing, just having that realization of clicking that what I was doing wasn't ultimately going to get me to where I wanted to be. And by continuing to do what I was continuing to do, such as working for someone else, great job, very rewarding, high salary, it was not ultimately going to shape me to where I wanted to be. So something had to change. And it's that personal growth period. The personal growth didn't come until I actually took the initiative and took the chance on myself and actually made that decision to do it. Because that was scary as heck. I figured, if I fail, I'm going to have to come crawling back. I'm going to have to get another job. But I was comfortable with that. I was willing to do that. And even now, to think where my business is, how my lifestyle is, it's not what I imagined because I didn't know what it was going to look like. But that's the personal growth journey. I've had to go through becoming a better version of myself, coming out of my shell, learning who I am, what I want, how I work, how I operate. And by doing that, that personal growth has enabled me to overcome some of the things that has stopped me from being, as I said before, taking risks, or stepping out of my comfort zone, or being willing to put skin in the game. And some of it is like imposter syndrome. Sometimes it's external forces such as tall poppy syndrome, other people bringing you down. So yeah, sometimes there's a confidence thing or just a doubt or a fear. But when we understand that worst case failure is it doesn't pan out. Worst case failure is actually you giving up. But if you hit a roadblock, if you hit a barrier, if you hit something which is a challenge and you overcome those challenges, the path is still forward. The path is still going to ultimately continue to take you to where you want to be. But where we most struggle is we have these problems, barriers, issues, conflicts, things arise, and we think we can't get past them. We can't go over them. We can't go around them. We don't know what to do. We freak out, so we go the other way, or we try something else completely different, and we lose focus. And that's why the theme of resilience is so important as well, to enable us to have that personal growth. Because when we overcome challenges, we still continue to build and create the lifestyle that we want, right? And it will ultimately shape, where you want to be and your approach to life. When you know that you're capable of doing things, you will be able to do so much more. It's, the problems that I had 2 years ago in my business, building my business, they're not even things that I think about today. My problems at the moment is, I got to make sure that I've got enough, revenue coming through and cash flow coming through and profit. I've got staff to pay. I've got people to look after. I've got rent to pay. I have, suppliers, wanting for me to do my next order. So making sure that I can bring that in. Can I, house it all? Can I do it? I want to grow, so I need to stretch it a bit more. Can I afford to do that? How do I calculate that? All these decisions I want to make. How do I make? What are the decisions I need to make today that's going to help us in 2 weeks' times, 4 weeks' times, 6 months' time? All these different things. But you don't get that understanding, you don't get that knowledge, you don't get that experience unless you're willing to overcome those challenges when they come. If you're not willing to solve the problem, if you're not willing to embrace the problem, if you're not willing to face it head on, then unfortunately you will not be able to make progress. And that's changed my mindset. I think the other whole counterpart of all this is, in parallel to all this, is my running journey. Now at the moment, running, I'm filming this in the 21st of July. You're probably not hearing this video until the end of August, but my running journey has taken a bit of a pause because I've got some injuries, which doctor's orders have said I need to stop running. Basically, I can do like 5K max a week in total, which is a big change for me because it's been such a crucial path of, as I feel like the running is similar to like the journey. You're running a marathon, you're running an ultra marathon. You got to do one step at a time, and you have to figure out, how am I going to get to that next milestone? How am I going to get to that next step? How am I going to get to that next 1 kilometer? And, for me, I love running half marathons. Like they're that sweet spot of where it's like, enough to get me uncomfortable, but it's also a sweet spot because it's a challenge which hypes me up. Where it starts to get gnarly is you got anything above 36Ks. That's where I'm still very uncomfortable, but I do like to push through and see if I can overcome that challenge. And it's very much the same metaphor for life, or a parallel to life of us trying to run that journey. There's things that we really, really good at, we excel at, and we thrive through because it's enough to push us, it's enough to get us uncomfortable, but it's enough for us to own and enough for us to be able to thrive through. That, whether it's business and life, we have to find as well. We need those things that are going to keep us honest, keep us moving, tactile, and, hypening or tightening our skills or our ability to be a better version of ourselves. Where we then need to continue to push into is these overcoming challenges, events or experiences where we are needing to push into this personal growth space of getting outside of our comfort zones, becoming a different version of ourselves, not a different version in terms of not who you are, but meaning a better version of yourself, growing who you are. For those that are watching this on a video format, like if you're a circle, that's how much you know who you are and everything. But as you start to expand, that circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Your bubble of comfort becomes bigger. So seeking that discomfort, I think one of the biggest setbacks that I've had, one of the biggest failures that I've had is not seeking that discomfort, because we naturally don't like it. But when you can learn to know how to, pull that discomfort in without putting it on like a fire hose tap, but you can kind of drip feed it in so that you're able to continue to get those quick wins. That's the sweet spot. When you learn how to do that. Now, in the past, I didn't really do that at all, unless someone asked me to. My boss says, you got to go to this meeting and host it. You're in charge. It's like, what? Huh? That really worked well because it was at the last minute. I thrived in the moment of being able to, show that I'm more than capable of doing this for my boss. But when you work for yourself, when you operate in an environment where everything you do is for someone else, in terms of you're responsible, you're accountable, and no one else is giving you the steps forward. No one else is telling you how to do this. You are the one doing that. Everything changes. And in order to force growth, you need to be willing to do things that are going to push you to overcome challenges. Putting skin in the game, purchasing a storage unit. I'm not saying this is what you should do for your business or anything like that, but for me, what I did was getting those storage units, doing the calculated risk, understanding how is this going to help me grow my business. I have to do this to enable myself to grow this business. If I do this, we have this opportunity to do. We need to make sure we do that opportunity. If we don't do that opportunity, ultimately we will not get the result that I want to see. It's about understanding what it's going to take. Are you willing to do that? Then go do it. If you do that, then you will grow. And when you know that the challenges come, how are you going to solve for it? Taking on someone who works for you, having to pay their wages. That wasn't part of the plan. Maybe the opportunity came earlier than you expected. So how do you work through that? How do you make it work? You test it. Even if it works, you do it again. If it doesn't, you adjust. You make a stop. You say, we can't do it this way anymore. How do you adjust it? But the idea is you want to continue to make steps, make progress, and put yourself in a position that's going to get you closer and closer to where you want to be. Okay. Now, there is someone out there that is doing a motorbike or something. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can't hear myself. We are going to wrap it up here. I think really what I want to make sure that I'm doing here is inspiring you, motivating you, and encouraging you to not look at failure as something as a bad thing. If you stop doing something because you're not seeing a result, you got to understand it's like, what were you expecting in the first place? A lot of the time we stop doing things or we fail is because we give up. We're not willing to see it through. And that's usually because of motivation, willpower, or a need that we need. Sometimes a lot of this is motivated by money. A lot of the time we want something, but when you're not getting the result that we want, we therefore think this isn't worth it. Therefore, I will go find something else that will do it. There is no quick scheme to life. There's no shortcut. There's no 1, 2, 3, skip a few, 99, 100. There's none of that. If you want to go 5K, you have to go 5K. You cannot walk 4K to do 5K. It just doesn't work. That's life. So there will be setbacks. There will be failures, things that kind of slow you down, things that come. It's then about how do you navigate through them? How do you navigate around them? Are you willing to navigate around them? If you're not getting the results you want, then what are you going to do about it? How do we then move towards getting the results you want? It's not as simple as like, okay, I'm going to stop, I'm going to give up on this and I'll just go find something else. The amount of people that I've seen started a YouTube journey, the amount of people that I've started a podcast journey, the amount of people that I've seen start a documenting journey, the amount of people that I've seen start a business, the amount of people that I've seen start all these different things, but then making up excuses, didn't work, oh, I don't have the money to be able to do that, oh, this isn't as easy as I thought, all these excuses. Now, some of that is okay because it redirects you to where you need to go. But sometimes it's because we're not willing to be resilient. We're not willing to have that personal growth, and we're not willing to overcome the challenges. That's the lessons there. That's really what I want to leave you with. That's really what I want to challenge you with. Got any questions about this? Any thoughts? Any, further conversations? More than happy to continue the conversation. Jump down below in the comments if you're here on the YouTube. Otherwise, you can reach out to me on Instagram. Get connected. Continue the conversation. I will actually ask again, if you can share this, send it to someone that you think this will resonate with. That would mean the absolute world to me. It actually really does help the podcast grow and we get more people here listening. It's not about me. At the end of the day, I want to help people further their lifestyle. I can do that by having these conversations, and I need to get it in front of more people. The best way to get it in front of people that don't already know about it is outside of my circles, which is your circle. Share it with someone. Share it with someone in their circle, right? Put it out there, see if something will stick, or maybe because you thought of them when listening to this. It means the absolute world to me. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back here next week doing it all again. You have a wonderful day. Cheers.